Thank you for joining us at the 2021 Generation Green Youth Conference. This session is brought to you by Dan Evangeliou, a national campaign manager at the Climate Reality Project Canada. Dean will be presenting a session on one of the Climate Realities projects, the National Climate League, which is a data collection project where the results highlight solutions that can set Canadian municipalities on track for carbon neutrality by 2050. Enjoy!
Hi everyone, thanks so much for tuning in to our explainer video on the work that we're doing here at the Climate Reality Project Canada as we take a specific deep dive into one of our major projects, the National Climate League. My name is Dean Evangeliou and I'm the National Campaign Manager for the Climate Reality Project Canada. I support and develop a variety of campaigns internally and externally with the goal of addressing the climate crisis and the steps everyone can take towards addressing it. For those of you not familiar with the work that we do here, the Climate Reality Project Canada is a charity organization founded by Al Gore that seeks to educate people on the causes for and solutions to the climate crisis, and mobilizes individuals across the country to push forward climate initiatives. The Canadian branch of the Climate Reality Project houses approximately 1,400 volunteers of the over 31,000 that we have worldwide. Internationally, we have volunteers in the United States, China, India, Australia, Brazil, the Philippines, Mexico, and all various countries in both Europe and Africa. The Climate Reality Project's volunteers, or climate reality leaders as we call them, are recruited via trainings that are held usually 3 to 4 times a year. At these trainings, Nobel laureate and former United States of America Vice President Al Gore educates volunteers about the science and impacts of climate change and the solutions to addressing it. These leaders are then encouraged to go and deliver presentations of their own to their family, friends, schools, and businesses to continue educating others on the climate crisis. Since its inception, the Climate Reality Project has delivered over 36,000 presentations, reaching over 11 million people worldwide. The Climate Reality Project Canada has 6 full-time staff members based in Montreal, but takes a decentralized approach to engaging with our volunteers and mobilizing them for change. We mainly do so through our Leadership Core training, which I talked about earlier, and our Community Climate Hubs initiative. The Community Climate Hubs are a group of citizens, businesses, and organizations who are representative of their community and are committed to accelerating progress towards net zero emissions. The Climate Reality Project Canada currently has 26 self-governed hubs spread across the country. The Community Climate Hubs initiative is guided by the premise of think global, act local. Demonstrating that reducing emissions in our communities not only helps the environment we all share, but can also improve our quality of life, is a core tenet of the work done by the Community Climate Hubs across the country. The hubs are able to help their municipality take action in several ways. 1, by rallying diverse voices around a common vision and timeline for their community's decarbonization. 2, advancing policy through education, mobilization, and government relations. 3, encouraging public participation in the development and implementation of plans. And 4, collaborating with other hubs across the country to draw attention to the need for all orders of government to work together. The CCH initiative is a decentralized model, and we have 14 fabulous regional organizers that help serve our hubs and their teams navigate the trove of resources that we have available on and below the surface of our website at climatehub.ca. Regional organizers meet regularly with hub members to help them find their feet and begin building people power in the service of rapid decarbonization. I think before I continue talking and going on to the National Climate League, I'd like to take a quick breather to go over some high-level poli-sci stuff for those of you unfamiliar with how Canada's divisions of powers work, especially when it comes to cities and the environment. So I think it's first important to recognize that Canada is a federation. And because of that, we operate under a system of federalism. So federalism essentially means that we operate under a patchwork of different orders of government. Basically, we have our federal government in charge of certain areas of policy, our provincial government in charge of others. These jurisdictional responsibilities are designated by our Canadian Constitution, and we call this the division of powers. For example, as you can see here, under the Constitution, healthcare and education are deemed to be provincial jurisdictions, whereas things such as defense, citizenship, and so forth are federal jurisdictions. This method of governance makes the topic of environmentalism and climate change a rather murky subject. When the Canadian Constitution was amended back in 1992, the environment and climate change were not really priorities. Therefore, these things don't really have a specific jurisdiction set for it. Knowing exactly who needs to deal with these environmental policies is therefore difficult. When it comes to things like carbon taxes, pipelines, Indigenous sovereignty, these are all multi-jurisdictional issues. So when Canada released its pan-Canadian framework on clean growth and climate change, it imposed a mandatory carbon pricing on provinces and territories. Since its release, multiple provinces have deemed this to be unconstitutional, saying that the federal government had no constitutional authority to impose these carbon pricing systems on the province. Saskatchewan, Alberta, and Ontario all launched legal challenges, which made it all the way to the Supreme Court. We see this tension in federalism, where it therefore becomes difficult to enact change because of this ongoing game of pointing fingers. Every province has different priorities, different economies, and ways of being. So top-down federal approaches to the climate tied with our governing system spells nothing but trouble. However, there is one order of government that isn't properly defined within the Canadian Constitution, but can have significant impact on the trajectory of the climate crisis moving forward. Municipalities hold so much power. They have jurisdiction over so many aspects of our lives that affect greenhouse emissions and in turn the climate crisis. From landfill waste, greenery and parks, and so much more. When I was doing my master's in public policy at the University of Toronto, there's one quote that stuck with me from one of my professors. He says, "Urban policy is all policy." And yeah, I think this is really true. There's so much that can be done at the urban city level. And if enough cities push forward progressive policy, that's a grassroots movement. Policy is complicated and messy, but there's really no correct start to where the policy cycle begins and ends. But I think that by working with cities, we can also signal to our provinces and federal government our priorities moving forward. So I think a lot can be done in cities, especially when so many aspects of our everyday lives and those that are often climate related are so city specific. So moving on, and now that we sort of have that sort of high level context on exactly how it works in Canada, we engage our community climate hubs and our member base at large through what we call the National Climate League Initiative, which is really a city-based initiative. So we've released the National Climate League standings, or the NCL, for the last 2 years now. And its officially third iteration just debuted on Tuesday, February 23rd. At its core, the NCL is meant to be an exercise in participative democracy. It's a massive data collection project powered and spearheaded by our citizen-led community climate hubs that we talked about. When published, the NCL standings highlight local solutions that improve the lives of everyday Canadians and help set Canadian municipalities on the path to carbon neutrality by 2050. So how does this all work? We here at the Climate Reality Project Canada have developed 30 indicators that are representative of living a better life in Canada. That means 15 primary and 15 complementary. We cover a broad range of topics, from things such as affordable housing to air quality, landfill waste to walkability, to just name a few. Although all these indicators aren't directly linked to lowered greenhouse emissions, they indirectly are, and when they perform well, Canadians tend to be happier and better off. To quantify these positive impacts and to #measure-what-matters across cities, we chose these indicators based on 5 key criteria. 1, accessibility, comparability across cities, the ability of municipal governments to act, their direct impact on GHG emissions, and whether or not the average citizen actually cares about this particular indicator improving. So how does this work and what makes this a citizen-led project? And how can someone like you get involved? So when we launch the data collection season for the standings, usually around June or July of every year, we ask everyday citizens, students, whoever it might be, to engage with their local elected officials within their municipalities, asking them to provide data to them on 15 key indicators out of the 30 that we've established. On our end, we provide them with tools such as templates, be it email or talking points, so that way Canadians can feel comfortable either calling, going in person, or emailing their local representatives. Since each indicator was created using a different methodology, for example, for our affordable housing indicator, we asked for the average monthly rental price as calculated by the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation. We also collect data on complementary indicators, such as specific greenhouse gas emission data. Most of these complementary indicators, though, are recorded by an either yes or no basis. For example, whether or not a city has a specific greenhouse gas reduction plan in place, yes or no. We don't particularly highlight which cities lead in these indicators. However, we use them to often help inform why one city might be performing better in one indicator over another. The standings also function as a sort of contest. For example, this year Calgary led the way in our bike lane indicator. The standings then explain the policies in place that allowed their municipality to thrive in that indicator and can hopefully inspire other municipalities that aren't doing so great to improve. So to sum up, the goal of the NCL is to 1, instill a sense of agency and community through citizen engagement and participatory democracy, and 2, draw on diverse constituencies to demand transparent accountability from their municipality. So I'd really like to go over some key results that we've noticed this year, that we've outlined in our highlighting key trend sections on this year NCL. One trend we've noticed over the last year is that the number of shared vehicles per 100,000 residents across most municipalities across Canada is decreasing. For example, one major car sharing company, Car2Go, left the North American market this year. The company cited infrastructure troubles and rising operating costs as to why they can no longer operate. Also, the future of car sharing in the country might be more electric and vehicle car sharing, which might take some more time to find routes across Canada. We might slowly start seeing municipalities develop their own car sharing initiatives if these kinds of trends continue. Another key insight we were able to deduct is that when it comes to housing prices across the country, this year, Ottawa zoomed past Montreal as the winning city. Ottawa saw an overall slower percentage growth in rental prices and housing over the course of 2015 to 2019 in comparison to Montreal. In our previous iteration, Montreal experienced a slower percentage growth increase between 2010 to 2018 than Ottawa. This indicates that Montreal's housing market is increasing at a faster pace than Ottawa, and that Montreal will need to look towards implementing further policies in fronting for future growth. This will be particularly interesting when it comes to contextualizing this within the pandemic context, where Montreal's housing market seems to be booming quite a bit. So this is just a quick snapshot of some of the trends and results that we gathered from this year's NCL, and we encourage you to go download this year's NCL to see exactly where cities across Canada placed. So this year's standings, as I've said, have officially been released, and we are now super excited to be able to share them with everyone on this call. You can access them by going online to climatereality.ca/NCL. And at this landing page, you can find the link to download the 2020 NCL standings, as well as the slew of resources we have available on how you can use the NCL to make change in your community. For this year's NCL, we've also collaborated with McGill University in Montreal to develop a podcast highlighting conversations between our volunteers on the ground and an academic who specializes in that specific field. Currently, our podcast on electric vehicles is up on our landing page, so please check it out and have it over a morning coffee. All right, so what next? So I'm going to close it off now with our last section of this talk, which is how you can participate and how you can use the NCL standings to help make change in your community. This year's edition launched just last month to great attention, and because this project is such a collaborative and spread out process, we're already beginning our planning processes for next year's iteration, and there are so many ways that you could help. One, if you're interested in becoming a part of our dedicated data collection team, we are recruiting as of now. Our data collection team will be responsible for collecting the relevant data in their own region, specifically the cities in that region. And we're hoping to gather a team of around 20 or so dedicated individuals who will make sure that we get even some of that really, really hard to find data from our elected officials. This is all volunteer-based, but we'll also have info sessions and workshops down the line on how you can help us out with the data collection process. Two, we want to also be able to develop a dedicated research and policy team for the next iteration of the standings. Every year, the standings highlight local policies that either foster or hinder certain cities and the indicators we're looking into. It's tough for just a few of us on the Climate Reality team to keep track of every single policy initiative going on in each Canadian city, so this is also where we could use your help. If understanding the ins and outs of municipal climate policy is something you're interested in and something you'd like to contribute to next year's NCL, we are also recruiting volunteers for that. Lastly, we want you to be able to take the NCL and make change in your community with the resources that we've already created and that are available to you. First, you could use either the actual NCL itself or the two-pager that's been created as an outline for you to use. These two-pagers are to be used for local media communications, or it could be used as a lobbying tool for you to bring to City Council. That way, by using these templates, the NCL, and the vast database that we have publicly available, you could customize the document how you see fit for your specific community. For example, for Montreal, we were able to customize it so its success in public transit was highlighted, but also how it could look to the City of Vancouver and the policies it has in place to improve its ranking in the Sustainable Buildings Indicator. Elected officials don't often want to deal with 20+ page documents like the NCL is, and they want to have policy briefs ready to go. These sort of two-pagers that we've developed therefore work both as a media communications tool and also a key policy brief explaining how your municipality can do better in the indicators they are lagging in. Of course, you're not limited to the resources we provide you, and you can get as creative as you want using NCL as your point of reference. Now, how do you go about lobbying your municipal government for those of you who've never sort of really done that before? At this point, we have no idea when it'll be safe to actually meet with elected officials, or just anyone really, in person due to the ongoing pandemic. So there are currently ways to meet with your city members virtually in a safe and effective manner. First thing to do is to go on your municipality's website and become familiar with the members of each city council. Also, take a look at their meeting schedules. For the most part, borough meetings are open to the public, and you should be able to find schedules for when these are being held on their city website. It seems like most borough meetings are currently happening virtually, so you should be able to attend safely. Once you've identified the important people at council, find their contact info. You can try to either email them or call them with the contact info they're given on their website. Also, some officials might have separate policy teams that you could get in contact with, so be on the lookout for that as well. Once you've made that contact, try to establish a meeting with them and make sure to set a clear agenda so that they know way in advance that they're not wasting their own time. Therefore, before the meeting, make sure that you develop one specific goal that you want to get across. This gives you one objective and can be used for following up on as well. On to the next sort of broad idea. How do you develop your own climate story and establish your reliability? I'm sure these people in municipal council get lots of emails every day, but you need to make sure you stand out. By explaining who you are, why this is important to you, and what work inspires you will help establish your credibility and could help your persuasiveness with whoever you're meeting. Make sure you know the facts going into the meeting and supplement it with personal touches. Lastly, when leaving a meeting with an elected official, make sure to reiterate your ask and to always follow up with them to ensure that you were heard. All of the resources available to you from the NCL itself to the toolkits we've prepared are all available on our NCL landing page that I put up here at climatereality.ca/NCL. I'll leave this final slide up for a little bit longer so that everyone can see our socials and the hashtags we've used to promote the NCL on social media, and feel free to share it within your networks and spark some change. It's been super great to get to talk to everyone here, and have a great day.
Thank you so much for listening to Dean Evangeliou talk about the National Climate League and what you can do to get involved. If you want to take climate action, don't forget to register for the project launch to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. You can find the registration link on the main page.